This is a documentary about racism. We are going to be going around asking people questions on how they feel about racism and what it is.
How do you feel about racism? This is Breland.
Breland Davidson. I feel like racism never died. Like, it's not like the time of the Jim Crow laws where it's all open, people being lynched and things like that. But it never died. It's still here, just simply hidden within the system. Bump the system.
Next. How do you feel about racism? This is Naisha.
Howard. I feel racism is wrong. I feel that nobody should be discriminated by their color and by the way they act.
Okay. This is Jeffrey.
I feel that racism is a form of hatred towards people who are like colored and not having the skin color that people want them to have, but that's only because the original people that populated this area were not of the darker color. So racism is not extended towards everybody, but it is extended towards people who are very just men.
All right, hello y'all. My name is Brian Terry, and currently I am the biology teacher at South Bend Career Academy. I have 9th grade students, 4 classes. I'm having a blast with them. They're great kids. Sometimes you got to beat them with a stick every now and then, but you know, you got to do what you got to do. Any questions for me?
How do you feel about racism, sir?
Racism. Well, racism is among us all the time. It's never going to possibly disappear. However, I think we can minimize it with the education of what racism is and steps that we can take to get rid of it, or try to.
And how does it affect you and the world today?
Well, it affects me basically, especially working at a multiracial school. You see a lot of interaction between different types of students, and you see good stuff happening, you see bad stuff, but I can definitely see some stereotypes that a lot of the students have. I can see some stereotypes that a lot of adults have within this building, just because of the way that everybody's raised and the cultures that we come from.
That's it.
Okay.
And thank you for your cooperation.
All right, thanks, guys. Right.
We need to find Miss Milby.
Oh, yeah.
Mr. Baker, we're going to go find Miss Milby.
How do you feel about racism?
I think that a lot of people think that racism doesn't exist anymore, and it does. I think racism has a lot more to do with people's dislikes and misunderstandings of other people, not just color, but age, handicap, people from different countries, and that kind of thing. It encompasses a whole lot. I think if people take the time to understand an individual and what that individual is about, I think that can squash racism real quickly.
Thank you for your cooperation. And this is Miss Collins.
Yes.
My name is Mr. Parsons. I'm the Director of Special Education for the South Bend Career Academy. And with racism, I think it's the one thing that really keeps America from coming together and being a unified country. I think we've gotten better over the years, but it might be that one thing that's still in our way.
Why is racism a bad thing?
Well, you see people, you downgrade people. You think you're better than the other person. You think that your skin color, your ethnicity is better than the other person's.
How does it affect America and you yourself today?
Well, kind of like I said earlier, I think it keeps us from becoming the country we want to be. I think that we've made huge strides since Dr. Martin Luther King, and but still today there's still people harbor resentment towards other color of skin, and it keeps us from progressing as a nation.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
Wait.
Hi, my name is Ms. Swope, and I am the 9th grade math team leader here at South Bend Career Academy.
Ma'am, how do you feel about racism?
I feel that racism is one of the problems that the United States has struggled with for many, many years, a couple of centuries actually, and although I have seen progress in the relationships between all races, I still think we have a long way to go.
How do you
And
think racism affects the world today?
Today, throughout the world, there are still problems. As I said, I believe that in our country it is, although much better, especially with the young people. The young people don't seem to have the same ideas and same problems with racism as the older generations do. I think there is still some holdovers from the older generations because it is as far as I'm concerned, racism is taught, it's not natural. Throughout the world, it is still a problem. There is a lot of racism in the Middle East. There's a lot of racism in Africa. There's a lot of racism in Europe. But I do believe it's getting better. From my time,
Hello, I'm Mr. Baker. I'm one of the world history teachers here at SBCA.
How do you feel about racism?
Racism, I just don't really agree with it at all. I don't think it does anybody any good to have, those type of feelings towards someone of a different color. I think that everybody is a very valuable individual and can offer great things if somebody would sit down and get to know them rather than judging the book by the cover. So racism, I don't think has any place in any place in society, work or school or whatnot. So that's how I feel about racism.
And how does it affect you in your eyes?
In my eyes, I think it just, when people are racist towards others, I think it affects, as a teacher, it would affect me in my ability to teach my students, just history in general. So I think that's how it would most closely affect me. But since I don't consider myself racist and I appreciate anything everybody has to offer, in that regard, it doesn't have much of a place in my life. So that's how.
Thank you for your cooperation.
My name is Mr. L. I'm a social studies teacher here at South Bend Career Academy.
And how do you feel about racism?
I think it's bad. It's pretty destructive.
How does it affect the world today, like in your eyes?
I think that it keeps people down. It is, again, destructive. It causes a lot of problems. And I feel that, I hope that as a people we can move past that at some point.
But why is it like a bad thing to you? Because, to yourself,
Well, I think that because certain members, it all goes into race and ethnicity, and it creates stereotypes. And because people are racist of one ethnicity or color or race, that reflects badly on everyone else.
My name is Yolanda Turner-Smith. I'm the school leader here at South Bend Career Academy.
How do you feel about racism?
As anybody should feel, racism is something that we shouldn't do. It shouldn't be practiced or taught. But there's a thin line between racism and prejudice. Everyone has prejudice. Everyone has bias. But what we in America also fail to realize, racism goes both ways.
How does racism affect you and the world today?
How does racism affect me in the world today? I have the same thing as everybody else. If I go back into my old neighborhood and I drive a nice car, I'll get profiled. If you walk into a nice upscale store like Louis Vuitton, you get followed. Those are things they stereotype you because you look a certain way. They assume certain things. But the other part, how it's affected me, is the opposite way. When I see African Americans and black kids don't succeed because they use the excuse of the man. And so they're using that as an excuse not to succeed, or either when to enforce your prejudices, especially when it comes in terms of skin color, ethnic cleansing. You asked how racism affects me. Racism affected me in several different ways, from when I'm with my Hispanic friends and they are profiled, or when I was with one of my friends. You guys saw the movie Hotel Rwanda. I was with one of those people who were persecuted and saw the scars left on her body due to that persecution. I think when we all take a look at it, it should lead us to the real answer. The real answer is this isn't something we can solve just within ourselves, but it takes something outside of ourselves to solve. And that something or somebody is God. We need someone to lean on and someone to provide wisdom and guidance on how we deal with people in their everyday lives. And then, and only then, can we put an end to racism and some of the other things that go on.
That's it. Thank you for your cooperation.
So, let me see.
Hard and BBs.
I'm about to wait till I see you. How do you feel about racism?
Well, I feel racism is an evil that's been a continuous throughout the American history. I feel like it's the cancer of America. It's senseless and shameless.
And like, what does it mean to you? Like, how does it affect you?
Well, being the age I am and seeing things come to fruition, it has a minimum effect on me, that it connects to me socially, psychologically, and mentally. And I feel drained by it when I look at historic footage and I see what my people go through and what they went through. And furthermore, it really defines the character of America, because it still exists and kids really don't recognize it. It's more of a settled economic thing, but it's still very prevalent and it's growing.
By the way, this is the janitor. What's your name?
Genario Morgan.
And thank you for your cooperation.
All right. Stop it.
Okay. Hello. I'm Ms. Cornelison. I am the foreign language team leader and also the English 9 assistant team leader.
What is racism to you, ma'am?
Racism is when anyone is against anybody else because of the color of their skin, or against any of their religion, and they demonstrate this. Some of it's subtle, and some of it is not so subtle when they use racial slurs and things like that.
Why is racism a bad thing?
Because racism, if someone is racist, they are belittling other people solely based on the color of their skin.
How does racism affect you and America today?
Racism is still, maybe it's not as bad as it was, but I still believe that it's still very much present in the United States, and it affects everyone's lives.
Any other questions, bro?
Nope.